There we go. Hello again, everyone. It's lovely to see you all. Um, what I'm going to talk about today is kind of continuing from last week, but it's not really, it's separate, but kind of connected, loosely connected. It's about setting a foundation for our meditation practice, for our practice. Last week, I talked about connecting different Buddhist traditions across time, space, and culture, which is a basis for being able to talk across all these different traditions about how they fit together and the emergence of common practices and being able to pick the elements that work for each of us. So today, the foundation of our meditation, which actually becomes the foundation for our life, because we should be able to take our practice off the cushion and live with this as the foundation for our lives. The foundation really is a relaxed body, clear mind, and a sense of peace, of calm, of being at ease. This shows up in lots of different ways and places, and I'll touch on this as I go through this, but that's really the foundation. It's relaxed body, calm mind, and this sense of being at ease, the ease of well-being, if you like. We begin all of this actually with the precepts, which is distinctly off the cushion. It's everyday life. If you think about it, when we violate precepts, we create stress in our bodies. Following the precepts, living a virtuous life is just really natural. It's a way to be in sync with the world we live in. And the precepts are just simply a way of describing that. Violating the precepts is inherently selfish behavior. It's creating a boundary between ourselves and others, and it's something that registers. So it creates stress in the body, not relaxed body, and it creates disturbance in the mind. So following the precepts, virtuous living is absolutely foundational to this practice. Beyond that, when we come to the cushion or when we come into our practice, how do we do so? What stories are we bringing with us? What intent are we bringing with us? For myself, I engage in prostrations, repentance prostrations, every time I sit. That's something I choose to bring in. And then you'll find in Eastern Asian traditions, Chan, Zen, Korean, Vietnamese Buddhism, a repentance and vow are intimately connected. Vow must come from a place of purity. If you've not intentionally purified, the vow is not really a sincere vow. So the repentance is a way of preparing the foundation for that. And you'll see that across traditions. So I engage in repentance practices. I also, Okamura wrote a book called Living by Vow. He's a Zen teacher, a retired Zen teacher. Living by vow. I live by vow. The Bodhisattva vows, which we're going to do at the end here. It's a set of clear intention of direction and orientation of life. So we encourage each of you to reflect on what is the direction and orientation of your life, right? And that's something serious that we can reflect on and we can intentionally bring to the cushion with us. However we frame that, bringing an intention to the cushion with us is important. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this just because I got half an hour to burn? Am I doing this because I want to feel a little bit better? Am I doing this because fundamentally I believe in these teachings and I know this is a path to complete freedom and I want to engage sincerely in that path? Am I doing this because this prepares this body and mind to be of service to the world? Why am I doing this? Remind ourselves of that as we sit. So then we're sitting, and there are a variety of ways of settling this system. The way that I have come to favor, the one that I do, and I generally do this on Thursday evenings and the last period on a Sunday morning. I didn't do this today. So this is that progressive body relaxation. Do folks like me doing that, by the way, on Sunday mornings? Yes? No? Yes? It distracts. So I've got any others? So I've got one distract and several people have said they like it. Okay, thank you. Um, so I get both sides. I get both sides. It helps a lot of people concentrate in it, but it can also distract if you're already settled. So, all right. That's the way I've come to favor. But there are a number of different ways of doing the Anapanasati. The first tetrad of the Anapanasati is fundamentally doing the same thing, which are the four steps of breathing in long, I know I'm breathing in long, breathing in short, knowing the breathing in, I know the body, breathing in, I calm the body. So that's basically the same foundation. I like the progressive relaxation because it's very clear in what it's doing. Stepwise, it is relaxing the body. And we live in a society where we are disconnected from our body. A lot of people are really disconnected and have almost no body sensation. So the idea that you start at the top and you come down, you focus on the places where we carry a lot of stress, which are between the eyebrows, the shoulders, and the belly in particular. And you create stress there. You raise the eyebrows so you can feel the tension in the forehead, and then you drop the eyebrows and you feel that release, an actual sense of release, actual sense of relaxation happening. So you can become somatically really aware of that. Do that with the shoulders. Lift the shoulders up, hold them, and then drop them with the out breath. And you feel that release. And then if you stay with that, you can feel with the out breath that release dropping down the body. You can feel weight dropping just very naturally. So this is a process that very naturally lets weight drop, lets us come in contact with our bodies and feel relaxation, release happening in our bodies, and actually cultivate this relaxed body. And we can become, as we become used to it, become more and more familiar with that. This addresses a couple of particular cultural problems in our society. We tend to be really top heavy. We spend a lot of time in our heads, on our phones all the time, talking all the time. People don't like silence. You go into a restaurant, TVs are on. It's just constant noise because we do not like calm. We do not like quiet. We're very top heavy. So this, as you feel the weight dropping when you relax, you are actually coming out of being top heavy. Your body energy, your center of attention, your center of gravity, if you will, is dropping down deep in the body, ultimately down into the ground. So the clear mind, in Chan and Zen, people talk about no mind. No mind doesn't actually mean totally blank. What it means is the mind without any sense of ego showing up. So there's a natural functioning of the mind that happens when, I'm touching a bell. So this, picking up a peach and eating it, right? These are just natural things. The mind is engaged in these actions right now. But when I start labeling bell and the peach is too sharp, or it's a little firm, or it's a little soft, it's overripe, underripe, tea's getting cold, I'm starting to create stories, bringing energy up into the head and clouding the mind. The clear mind is one without all those self-referential thoughts. It's not one which is blank, but it's without those self-referential thoughts. So as the weight drops, the mind clears. It's like a glass of muddy water. You don't have to do anything. You just put it on a side and leave it. We don't have to do anything to get a clear mind. Our mind is naturally clear. We just have to stop throwing pebbles in it. Stop stirring it up. So this intentional relaxation does that. And a fairly obvious point, I'm talking about relaxing the body. We carry stress in our bodies. Talked about how the world we live in we normally live. This is countercultural because the way we live, we create stress in our bodies. It's the dominant culture is one where people don't follow the precepts as we talk about them. It's basically, if nobody's going to stop me, it's okay. Nobody's watching, so I'm going to run a red light, not stop at a stop sign. If I can get away with it, it's okay. So these all create stress in the body. This word stress is dukkha, folks. That is front and center. That's dukkha. That is what this practice is about releasing. So those words, when we're relaxing the body, we are precisely releasing dukkha from the body. This stress, it is dukkha. Tanisra's favorite translation, Tanisra is the Thai forest guy in California. His favorite translation of dukkha, which he uses again and again, is stress. Okay, so one thing that's important that happens here is as we relax, when we come into our practice, generally we come into it with a distracted mind. Our mind's bouncing around. We've got thoughts of this, that, and the other, where we're coming from, what we'll be doing later. It's distracted and distractable. As we relax the body and as everything drops, the mind becomes more concentrated. Right? A distracted mind hijacks everything. You can think you're concentrating on something, but the mind, it's just bouncing around and it will grab you and take you somewhere else. Distracted minds ruin everything. They hijack everything. And we know this from experience. So a lot of what we're doing here is we're bringing the mind, we're relaxing the mind, we're creating this clarity in the mind and bringing the mind much more under control. So this distracted mind is much less likely to hijack us. There's a flip of this, though, which is something we really need to be careful of. And you've all experienced this, which is, or at least I suspect you've all experienced this. As the body relaxes, becomes really calm, and it can start to become a little dull. And this relaxed body can hijack everything. The relaxed body can take us to sleep, take us into these dull places. And some of them can be really pleasant, but they're not productive from a dharma or a practice standpoint. They're just pleasant places. So we've got to be aware of that. We've got to notice that as our mind is calming down and becoming centered and concentrated, our body is becoming relaxed, and we're flipping from the mind hijacking everything to the body hijacking everything. And this is one I pick up from Guagu in Florida. He talks about you've got to be on your method. Now, I'll talk more about method probably next week, but we don't have time to do that today as well. But this is where staying really focused, very clear about what your method is and being present with your method is so important, because being present with your method and being interested in your method is precisely what stops the body then hijacking as the mind calms and clears. Okay. I'll offer a sidebar here, which is methods can be, we normally think of methods on the cushion, but a method is chanting. And I just remember this because Beth this morning, my wife Beth, we were over coffee this morning. She talked about how much she enjoyed our chanting practice yesterday. Once every couple of months, we come here on a Saturday afternoon and we spend 3 hours in here chanting. And a couple of the chants are generally circumambulating the room. So we'll chant something for 20, 30 minutes, just repetitively circumambulating the room. And Beth talked about how powerful she found that as a concentration practice. So I encourage you to all think about maybe joining us sometime, but lots of different ways of approaching practice is the point of that. So you're grounded, weight has dropped, you're centered. And then what? We've got a relaxed body, we've got a clear mind. The next thing is this sense of ease, the sense of peace, of contentment. So the last instruction when we're doing that progressive body relaxation is, now come back, check in with your feeling tone. Should be feeling content. Bring strong interest to bear on your method. The strong interest to bear on your method is what I just talked about, and we'll do that another time. But this check in with your feeling tone. should be feeling content. The way we experience the world has very little to do with the objective reality of the world. Because actually, there is no objective reality to the world. There really isn't, folks. There's somebody who out there who I find obnoxious and who I find irritating. That person may be somebody's best friend or spouse, somebody in this room who I also happen to care deeply about, right? Why do I see that person radically different from how somebody else sees them? There's no objective reality in that person. How I experience that person is all about how I approach that person. It's to do with my history with that person. I can see that person as an archetype of a particular box, such certain type of person. Lots of different ways of labeling people. We won't go through that. I mean, I can therefore bring totally spurious labels of how I perceive that person to bear, which have nothing to do with that person, but entirely to do with some arbitrary category I've imposed on that person. Could be to do with the geography. I could be in a place which I find uncomfortable, so I'm going to find the person uncomfortable. Our practice unpacks a lot of that stuff, right? Our practice ultimately unpacks all of that. One of the central ways we relate to the world is this thing I'm calling feeling tone. It's a tricky translation, tricky word, because when we think of feeling tones, we tend to land on feeling, which is Vedana out of the Pali Canon, which is generally pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings, what happens immediately after contact in the dependent chain of origination. So this is not that. This is not that. It's more like it's an emotional valence, but it is how you feel. It's how you feel. If I'm feeling irritated, if something's annoyed me and I'm allowing that to stay here and somebody steps on my toe, I'm going to be upset. If I'm feeling really nice, if I've just had a really good massage, or if I've just had a really nice meal with Beth, if something really nice has happened and I'm feeling really contented and pleasant, somebody steps on my toe, it's no big deal. They were just a little clumsy. They're probably in a rush. It doesn't matter. This feeling tone is supremely important. Supremely important. So being aware of this feeling tone. This is why you check back in afterwards. Check in when you've relaxed the body. Check in. How are you feeling? Are you still feeling a little irritable, a little not relaxed? Are you feeling content? Are you feeling generous, grateful? What is here? If you're not feeling content, a really easy thing to do, particularly when you're relaxed, it really, really try it sometime. If you're feeling fairly relaxed, lick your lips, just put a little smile on the corner of your lips. Close your eyes and just do it now. Just put a little smile on your lips. Just feel a little better. Changes how you face the world. So staying in tune with this feeling tone is really important. When we engage in metta practice, really important there too. We're trying to radiate loving kindness to people. If we're feeling irritable, that's not going to go very well. In fact, it's going to be profoundly counterproductive because what we're going to do is going to be engaging in this intention of radiating loving kindness. But because we're a little irritable, when we think of the person we're radiating loving kindness to, flaws are going to show up. We're going to see something in that person we don't like. So we're going to actually start projecting irritation and anger towards that person. Absolutely counterproductive. Really, really, really important that we have the appropriate feeling tone, which is one of the reasons to be very gentle and slow in how we engage in metta practice. Really ground, really slow, really gentle. Create a sense of gratitude or loving kindness or some kind of warmth before we start engaging in that practice at all. And then start with an easy place. So we generally start with ourselves. When we're doing compassion practice, the general instruction is to start with a benefactor, somebody who's close to us, but not family, not a particularly complicated relationship, but a benefactor, somebody we're grateful to, who needs some help. So we're starting in a place that hopefully is an easy place where we can really, and when we start with ourselves, a way of looking at it is to remember ourselves as a younger person, as a child, and think of things that we are grateful for from that place. So we can bring up a much more generate a sense of gratitude, of warmth, coming from a good place. And then we can start to step out, but do so gently so we don't destabilize this feeling tone. So this feeling tone is really, really important. So this is the foundation, right? This is, if we want to have a successful practice, we really need, and that's on the cushion and off the cushion. I'll talk about off the cushion as well in a minute. But if we want to have a successful practice, we need to have a relaxed body, which means not carrying stress, not carrying dukkha in our bodies. We've got to be intentional about that. We naturally, the way we live in this world naturally creates stress in this body. So unless we're intentional, we will be carrying stress in this body. And as we mature in our practice, unless we're intentional about continuing to release stress from this body, we'll hit a level where we've stalled on a certain level of stress and we're not going to go any further. We've got to keep on doing this, keep on working on releasing stress. Same with our minds. This top-heavy world we live in, surrounded, bombarded by news media, social media, stories, tensions, TVs in the background. We're just constantly letting these habits of thoughts build. Got to release that. So from a dharma standpoint, pretty much any thought, any of these random thoughts, they are wandering thoughts. Spend a moment and think about it. What thoughts come into your head that are not self-centered in some way, shape, or form? You see something, you think, oh, I need to deal with that. That's a me. Oh, I've forgotten that. That's a me. That's a pretty color. That's a me. That's a judgment about the color. Curious what's going on in the World Cup these days. That's a me. Interest in soccer. There's a favorite team in there. There's sides in here. All of these thoughts come up. They're all wandering thoughts. But we're so used to this, we just don't see it. So again, got to be really, really intentional about slowing those thoughts down. And this feeling tone, really intentional about being aware of that feeling tone. How much of the time do you actually not notice that you're irritated? You're just a little bit off. Got to be really intentional about tuning into that and then fine tuning to make sure we keep that where we want it. And these become practices that we take off the cushion because as we engage in these intentional practices of relaxing the body, clearing the mind, bringing forward a positive feeling tone, we become used to the feeling of this. It becomes nice. The pleasant feeling tone, by the way, that shows up in the Pali Canon in a big way. The piti and sukha are just so important. If you practice with the Thai forest or the Pali tradition or the Goenka traditions, any of these feeling tones are so important. These Vedana are so important. They're not Vedana, sorry, the piti and sukha, these can't categorize them, but they mean basically, piti is generally translated as joy or rapture. And when you really settle, there's just this natural surge of energy that can arise. Really pleasant. It can be overwhelming, but it's basically a really positive, pleasant energy. Different people experience it differently. As you keep on settling, that fades. And what's left is a much more gentle sukha, which is peace. It's pleasant. In the second jhana, it's described as a calm abiding, pleasant abiding. And in a lot of teachings, Dhammadippa, who will be leading a retreat here in November, who's led a retreat here each year for the last several years, Um, she routinely talks about how the piti is an essential ingredient on the path. It's essential in that it is encouraging, it creates a framework for us to proceed. So this is analogous very much to this feeling turn I'm talking about. Really important. As we become used to working with these on the cushion, they become very normal. They're nice. It's just a much better way to live. So it becomes much more interesting and attractive to cultivate those in everyday life. So we can do Thich Nhat Hanh's practice of, set a little alarm on your phone, and every couple of hours there's a chime. And so you stop and take a couple of breaths. Calm yourself down. Recognize when you're about to go into a stressful situation, drop your energy down. In Japanese, it's called the tanden or the hara, just the center, it's right below the navel and a little bit back in the center of the body. Really grounding yourself. You can do what Guagu teaches, which is 5 times a day, just 1 minute chant, he calls it. But it's basically pick 5 points in the day, 5 predictable points. When you drive into work, when you're having dinner, when you're brushing your teeth, and spend a minute going through this intentional relaxation, intentional grounding, familiarizing yourself with it. Life will be much happier, much more pleasant for each of us and for everybody we encounter. That's what I got for you, folks. So let me stop recording and let's talk about what comes up here.